Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Just Settled. We are here with Shawn Sasoones of Sasoones Law Group. Welcome, Shawn.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, and his firm is an incredible law firm that we work with here in Los Angeles, in sunny Woodland Hills, California, handling personal injury and workers' comp. Um, we were going to talk about one of your most recent victories and great cases today, and I just wanted to kind of kick that off. If I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about kind of this specific case, how you first became aware of it or heard about it. Like, paint us a picture of how you first learned about this case and what it entailed.
Yeah, sure. When you first asked me, when I first learned of this talk, uh, I was told that it's going to be about a particular case that just settled. I picked this one because I find myself, I talk about it a lot. Uh, Not a lot, but every now and then, I use this case as an example uh, to show clients and tell clients, how a case plays out from beginning to end, talking about how the accident happened, treatment, liability, stuff like that. So that's how I chose this particular case. How we got this case, it was actually, it's a relative of one of our employees here in the office. So she was a relative, accident happened, and she knows that, her sister-in-law was worked at our office, so immediately called her. This accident just happened. Can you help me out? What should I do? And our employee went straight to the accident scene to help out a sister and do what needed to be done in that situation. So that's how we got it, and that's how the case came about.
Okay, that's yeah, interesting. Right when you first heard about it, did you immediately kind of know, like, oh, this is definitely, you have a case here, that there was ground to stand on, or were there any questions at all about how it might play out?
Right off the bat, when you specialize in car accidents or any particular area of law, you the duty's on you to know, when there's a case, what the issues are from the very beginning. So, there were some issues that I thought would arise. I knew automatically, okay, this is a case that we could take on, we could win, and I believed in the case from the beginning. You recognize some of those issues at the beginning. That's important too, as the lawyer, so you could attack them early. So we did know some potential issues with liability. Who's at fault? Was it going to be a he said, she said? Uh, so that we knew, but right off the bat, no, this is definitely a case that I believe in, and I think that we could win.
Awesome, awesome. In terms of like the client's expectation when they first came to you with restitution or what they, I guess, thought that they might be able to get, what range is this kind of case worth typically, and what was, I guess, the firm's expectation for it?
So that changed. I mean, clients' expectation. The some of the best clients that we have are the ones that don't have any expectations. Because we don't know which way. There's so many different factors that are going to affect the value of the case. How much money is available? If you get hit by a 17-year-old working at McDonald's, they probably won't have a big policy and much money for you to go after. If you get hit by a FedEx truck, okay, your recovery is unlimited. On top of that, what the injuries are. So there are so many different factors that could affect the value of a case. How much money is available, what the injuries are, and all that. Our particular client, she didn't, she came in and, her only concern was accident happened, she was injured. Can you guys help me out? She didn't have much expectations. And those are the best clients. They believe in you, they trust in you, and they just want help with this accident that happened. They want help with their injuries. They want help getting the medical treatment that they need. So her expectations were good. On our end, same factors affect our expectation of the case. Expectations change as you realize these injuries are more significant than we originally thought. Okay, that affects, that changes our value of the case. When she first came to us, she didn't have any broken bones or anything like that, but she was just pain, discomfort. So it's like, okay, let's get you checked out. Over time, we learn, okay, these are pretty significant injuries. Injuries that require surgery, long-term care. So our value changes over time. That's how both clients' expectations, our expectations, and value of a case play out in these types of cases.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even think about the whole sort of, obviously, as you move through the case, you're getting more and more discovery in terms of extent of injuries and what that actually is going to mean financially, not only in
Yeah,
the moment, obviously, long term. So that's, a good way to think of it that I wouldn't have automatically thought of. Um, when you get into a case like this kind of case, what kind of opposition and obstacles typically arise, and what were some unique ones, like challenges that came up in this particular case, if any?
sure. So in these types of cases, just like with any case, whether it's a car accident case, it's a slip and fall and a dog bite, you're you always have to get by liability. You first have to establish that the other person, somebody else, is liable for your client's injuries. You always have to get through the liability aspect of it. And in this particular case, there was a liability because the person that caused the accident, the person that was involved in the accident with my client, was claiming that it was my client's fault. She hit them. So you have to first establish liability. That's one hurdle you have to get through. After that, uh, you gotta it's the other person saying, lying. Are they lying? Who's telling the truth? Is your client telling you the truth? What really happened here? Getting through that. Um, and then on the injuries. So if in this particular case, we were claiming certain injuries, significant injuries. She injured her back really bad and it required surgery. So what the insurance company does a lot of the times, and they did in this situation, they hired a private investigator to follow our client around. And they came back and they showed it to, like, this is your client walking her dog. This is your client at the grocery store. This is your client hiking. Okay? So these are obstacles that we get over on certain cases because at the end of the day, we're asking for a lot of money. We're not just asking for like 5, 10, 20,000. Our client was really badly injured and the the value of those injuries are high. So they're going to pull out all the stops. They bring on an investigator and they're like, well, you're saying your client had really bad back injuries, but they're walking, hiking, going out. So getting over that, getting over that issue. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, so our client's injured. She's not dead, God forbid. So um, there, then those are certain obstacles that you wanna work through. And on cases that are certain value cases, you're always got tactics from the other side, like private investigators. You know, they're lying. They bring in their doctors to evaluate your client and say, "Well, we don't think she was injured. She seems fine to us." Okay, of course. You're a doctor. You're getting paid by the other side. Of course, you're going to say that. So these are the obstacles that you face with these types of cases.
Hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. the private investigator thing blows my
Wild,
mind.
huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, in terms of like timeline, start to finish on a case like this, uh, how long does it kind of take, and how does like each step kind of play out if you're going to like break it down into, I guess, like thirds or like step one, step two? Like how does it usually run its course, and how long does that usually take? Or in this case, how long did it take?
Sure. This case took a while. This case took 3 years, I want to say. But that is on the higher end. So we have cases that settle within 1 month. Typically, the bigger the case, the more significant injuries, the more serious injuries, the more money we're asking, it's going to take a little bit longer. With this particular case, perfect example. Uh, First step is it's our client. It's all about the client, their injuries, and their medical treatment. They come to us because they're injured. Our job is to help them get the medical treatment and attention that they need. So, step one is their injuries and getting the right medical care. That could take 2 years. And with more significant injury cases such as this one, client came to us, she has low back pain. Okay, let's get her into some physical therapy, chiro, conservative treatment. Let's see how that goes. Hopefully, that does the trick, nothing too serious. Okay, after 3, 4, 5 months, that doesn't work. Let's get you, let's take an MRI. Let's see what's going on in there. Let's get you into specialists to examine you. Go in, we take a look at the MRI. She's got a little bit of a slip disc that's impinging on a nerve that's causing pain going all the way down her leg. Okay, specialist takes a look at it. Okay, let's try these injections that may alleviate some of the pain, loosen up the muscles in that area, so we could do more physical therapy, more aggressive physical therapy to help strengthen that injury, that body part, to hopefully make it better. We tried that for 6 months. That doesn't work. Okay, what's the next stop? Look, if you're still having pain at this point, it's like a year plus out. It's not, still the conservative care isn't working. You don't want to jump straight to surgery. That's the last option. And that was the last option here. So then the recommendation was, hey, the conservative therapy isn't helping, it's not working. There is a surgery that we could do where we could shave off, cut off a piece of that disc that's impinging on a nerve. That may help relieve some of the pain and discomfort. So we do that. So at this point, you're into a year. After you get the surgery, you have more therapy. And you have to wait and see, are they going to make a recovery? Are they going to make a full recovery? Are they going to have any residual pain or discomfort? Or are they going to be 100%? Rarely ever are they back to 100%. So then you're in the second year. And by the time you're waiting for that, and we don't want to settle or close this case until we know the full extent of our client's injuries and damages. So if we know she needs more care, more treatment, surgery, we're not going to settle the case 6 months in. No, we're going to wait until we have a good grip and know the full extent of her injuries and damages. Then we'll be ready to come to the table. So after the surgery, there was that, and at that point, you're almost 2 years in, and the surgery, thank God, did help her. She still wasn't 100%. She was still feeling pain, discomfort, but it was better. She wasn't feeling that numbness, the tingling going down her leg. So at that point, you're like a couple of years in. Okay, we have a good idea of what her injuries are, the full extent of her injuries. We have a good idea of what she's going to have to live with for the rest of her life. We're ready to come to the table. So injuries and treatment is step one. Okay, that's our entire focus. That could take a month. It could take a couple years. Two, at that point, once we know, we focus all our attention on doing what we have to do to maximize the value of the case. We focus on what do we have to do to build this case? What medical records do we have to put together? What witnesses do we have to bring forth? People around her that could tell us she's half the person she used to be. This is all what increases the value of a case. And this is what we do. This is, once treatment is done, that becomes our focus. Then in that whole process, you're dealing with a lot of these issues that I had mentioned. The other side fighting back, saying, no, we don't think she's that injured. We don't believe her. And things like that. So that's typically, how a case gets built up.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, especially in multiple years. That's I can imagine that it is, just it's a lot of work, and
It's a lot for the
sure she.
client.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a big journey to kind of go through and difficult. In this case, when did you kind of have a sense that there was going to be a settlement? Because I mean, I'm assuming, or what are the percentage of these cases that actually end up going to court, or do they typically always kind of settle? And when do you know that in this kind of case?
So your goal is always to settle the case. And with this case, we attempted to settle the case with the insurance company without having to go to court. When that doesn't work, you file a lawsuit. Okay, you're not going to come to the table and settle. We're going to file a lawsuit, and we're going to push this to court. After you file a lawsuit, very small percent of cases, less than 1-2%, go all the way to trial in front of a judge and jury. So even after you file the lawsuit, you're still, going through the process of discovery, their doctors examining your client. So, you're going through that whole process before it goes in front of a judge or jury to decide the case for you. And throughout that whole process, you still have the ability to settle the case, and that's what we did here. Insurance company didn't want to settle. We filed the lawsuit. We litigated the case. We put heavy attorney hours into it. And right before it was to go to trial, they came to the table and they were like, hey, should we try to mediate this case? And a mediation, when you mediate, you get a third party neutral involved. Third party independent person has no dog in the fight. They come, they're sitting there, they look at the other side, their case, their argument, they look at our side, our case, our arguments, and they try to help facilitate a settlement. And in this case, it was at that mediation where we really felt strongly that it was going to settle. It didn't settle at that mediation, but it settled shortly after. But at that point, we knew we weren't too far apart, in how much they were willing to offer on the case and how much we felt like the case was worth. We weren't too far apart. So at that point, it's not worth the risk of going to trial. Dragging the client into court every single day for 2 weeks, sit there in front of a jury, attorney hours that cost of the case that are going to go up, risk of losing.
Yeah.
We don't
Right.
want those risks. I think
Yeah.
we could settle this for a fair amount. That's how this case ended up settling.
Yeah, it's interesting that because my next question was like you perfectly kind of led into it because I was curious about how those negotiations ended up going, and the insurance company, I guess in this case, obviously was the one who you were directly dealing with. Like, did they try to lowball or kind of just go as low as possible? I'm assuming they probably usually try to do that. And how did you ultimately create that leverage for your client to get them what you wanted to get them?
Yeah, man. These insurance companies, they have one job and one job only. That is to do whatever they can to minimize the amount of money they put in your pocket. It's ridiculous. So, exactly, as lawyers, that's what we do. We do whatever we can to leverage and maximize the amount of money that we put into our client's pocket. So, they lowballed us from the beginning, and they offered small amounts, and they throw everything at you. Oh, our insured wasn't at fault. We weren't at fault in this accident. Your client was your client is, we don't even believe she's that injured. So they're doing all that. They did all that. And what we do is we stand our ground and fight. No, our client is injured. We get him into credible doctors to evaluate her, examine her, make the right diagnosis, and provide the right medical treatment. And that's how we build up a case. We file a lawsuit. Okay, you don't want to settle with us? We're going to file a lawsuit with the court. We file a lawsuit. We put in attorney hours, and we hire experts that could come forward and put together. They're experts, they're accident reconstructionists that come together, which we did in this case, that come, take a look at the scene of the accident, listen to how the accident happened, and they reenact how this accident could have happened. And they do that, and they're like, what the hell are they saying? There's no way your client could have been at fault for this accident. People like that, doctors that we bring forward, that we pay for to come forward on behalf of the client and say, how are you going to say this person was not injured? Look at the medical records. Look at her complaints. Look at the MRI findings. Of course she wasn't. So these are the things that we do to leverage or give us leverage in increasing and maximizing the value of the case and how we ultimately ended up settling the case.
Gotcha. And in this particular case, what was that settlement outcome, and how, happy was this client with that, the compensation? How did it help them recover from the event? Can you speak to some of those things, if it's okay to disclose any of that?
Sure, I'll give a little bit. The accident was, the amount of the settlement was just under $1 million. So that's how much we ended up settling it for. And client was, again, she was ecstatic. She was very happy. At the end of the day, no amount of money could compensate you for certain injuries, compensate you for your quality of life, your lowered quality of life, your inconvenience of living a lifetime with these injuries, this discomfort. So she was very happy. But I say that there's no amount of money, but money is all that there is. You can't take the accident back, can't rewind time. Just money is all that there is. So our job is to get as much of that as possible to make her life as better as possible, even with her injuries. So she was very happy. More than anything, she was happy to put it behind her and move on with her life.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing all this about this case today. It really was super interesting and insightful, and just I kind of learned a lot of different things that I didn't really know or would have thought about in terms of how these kinds of cases play out. So we appreciate you for that. And we hope to talk again soon with you about some other cases coming up.
My pleasure, Dan. Thanks so much. You got it. Look forward to it.